Hi friends, welcome to today's video. So today we are going to discuss a very important topic, that is on search optimization in Swift. And also we'll discuss about dispatch work item that we can use to solve this problem. So let's see that what I have done for this sample as a part of this video. So this is very straightforward sample that I have a view model where I have a function called fetch books which fetch the book from the open book API. So this is the URL that I'm going to use. I'll set this sample, so don't worry much about the code. And then this is a client which makes the API call, and this is my view. So here you can see that I have a searchable that I'm using in the Swift UI, and on every search text change I'm just calling this Facebook's API. Okay, so let's say that if you wanted to search for a book on Android topic. So in the current implementation, as you are calling this Facebook API on every keystroke, so what will happen that the API will be called for A N D R O I D all the letter. But as a user, I was just interested in the results for Android. Now, how can you know that at the time that okay, now the user has stopped typing, then only make the API call? This all things we will see in this approach. But let's first start typing the letter. So I typed A, then N, D, R, O, I, and D. So if you see how many times the request started for all the letter that I have actually typed. So how many times you made the API call? It's A N D R O I D. So you made 7 API call. And how many actually you wanted? You wanted just to make one API call. And this creates a problem of throttling. So what is basically that? Throttling is mainly used for searching tasks when a user types fast, so that to make sure that your backend server doesn't receive multiple requests. Okay, so what happens that if you make more and more requests, let's say that nowadays all the backend APIs are cloud based, they're using as either AWS or Azure. So how many times you hit the API, it is basically the cost also increases, because the cost is dependent on how many requests comes from the app. Okay, now to optimize this we have a concept of debounce. Okay, so we can use the concept of debouncing. So what is a debouncing basically? So debouncing is that ensure that a particular method is not executed too frequently. In this case, what is happening that our method, which is this fetch books, this is happening or this is executing on every keystroke. Now, how can we optimize this? Now, one thing you can say that, Nilis, I can optimize this using a timer. Like, uh, I'll just start a timer whenever the user types it, and whenever the user types, I'll just reset the timer, and I can put a timer for like a 0.5 second or 1 second, and after that I can make the API call. That can be one of the approach. But what I say that no, we have better approach in terms of like RX Swift, in terms of combine, in terms of dispatch work item. And here comes the another important questions which is generally asked in interview, that what is the difference between GCD and operations queue? And one of the difference we generally tell that operation queue we can cancel the operation, but in dispatch queue we can't. And here comes actually the dispatch work item. So we can even cancel the operations in the dispatch queue also using this dispatch work item. So if you see what is this dispatch work item, the work you want to perform encapsulated in a way that lets you attach a completion handler or execute dependencies. Okay. Now in dispatch work item you have few methods, like we have notify, which you can use to listen for the changes when the dispatch work item has executed, and then you have a method called cancel, and this cancel you can use to cancel the work item asynchronously. Okay, and then you have also is cancel flag to check whether the operation has been cancelled or not. So in this sample I will be focusing more about this cancel, because this is what we can use to stop this API call from happening so many times, and, and make our code more robust and make our search more optimized. Now the question comes that how can we do it? So let's start coding for this. So we are going to define basically a dispatch group for a work item object. So okay, so now I have created this dispatch work item object. Now before this method, like after this method is called, what you have to do, the first thing is that you have to call this cancel method. Okay, that if any work item is there, just cancel that operation. And this call has to be wrapped inside the dispatch work item block. So I'm just cut it and create a dispatch work item object. So I have wrapped it inside this request work item object. After this, what we have to do, we have to assign this, the work item object that we have created, to our global object. That means like this. And then now we have to call this work item after a delay. Now let's say that you want to give a delay of 0.5 second or 0.25 second or 1 second. That all depends on you, that when the user is typing. Now the moment he left the typing, you want to wait for a fraction of second before making your API call. So I can just use a dispatch queue dot global, and we'll use this async after. Now when you use this async after, you see that there's a deadline of how much time you want to call, and then execute your dispatch work item block. Okay, so let's say that for a time being, I give dot now plus millisecond of, let's say, 500. Okay, and then execute this request work item. Okay, now that's a simple code to use this dispatch work item. You created a global object, then the moment the function is called, first cancel your operation, then whatever the task you want to perform, that just wrap it inside a dispatch work item group, and then you call your function after a particular interval. Okay, now let me stop and run this app again, and now let me type Android again and see how many times this gets called. So Android. Now if you see that the request started for all the all these things. Why? Because this print statement is actually outside. So let me just bring this print statement also inside this block so that we can have more meaningful output. So let me run it one more time. So Android. Now if you see, I typed Android, but it just made the call one time. So what is happening basically, that when you are typing it, the the moment this function is getting called, it is canceling the existing work item, and then again it is forming one block. Okay, and then it is assigning to that global variable, and that's the reason that we are taking this global, because so that we can cancel it whenever this function is getting called. If you don't capture this request work item, you cannot access it the next time when this function is getting called. And then I am calling this API after this 500 of millisecond of delay. Okay, now to show you one more thing, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to reduce this to 250. Let's say that, so that I have a lesser time before making a new API call. Okay, now here this time I'll go little slow. So Android. So now this time what you're seeing, that it is calling the API call for all the alphabet, because I typed very slow, and also I reduced the time to 250 millisecond. Now one thing you can here, the sometime the confusion comes, that if I'm canceling this work item, then it should actually cancel this operation, because if you see that when the request started for A, then AN, the first response that came was after actually I typed ANDRO, but ideally it should have been cancelled, right? Because I'm actually cancelled the dispatch work item. But see, think it in this way, that when you make the API call, the API call already started from your side. Okay? The request has been made. Now, once the API call already started, cancelling this will not cancel that API call. Only if the operation has not started, then only the dispatch work item will cancel that operation. If it has already started, then the operation will go, it will not cancel it. And that's the reason that you can see when you are typing very slow and you are reducing this time, this request and response you are getting for all the type later that the user is typing. So just for the confusion, I told you that it will cancel the operation which has not started. Okay, so let me just change it back to a good time so that we can have a better performance. Let me run it again and let me type this time iOS. So you can see that the API call just happened for one, that is iOS. Okay, so this is the way how you can make your search performance much better. And many times this question is actually asked in interview, that how you can improve your search in client side. So hope now you have understood in which scenario we can use dispatch work item and how we can use it to cancel the operation even in the GCD. So that's all for today's video. Hope you have enjoyed, and if you really enjoyed watching this video, please do like, comment, share and subscribe. Thank you. Thanks for watching.